All right, good afternoon. My name's Court Johnson. I'm the VP of Growth here at AtScale. Today we have Dave Mariani, Chief Strategy Officer, providing our demo of how AtScale works with Google BigQuery. So AtScale is a virtual data warehouse. We work with enterprises to modernize their analytics architecture. Our customers rely on us to help with several data modernization initiatives, including accelerating cloud data transformation without disrupting the day-to-day analytics of the business, creating a single virtualized view of the data no matter where it's stored, optimizing query performance and costs, something that we'll address today, and enabling the security and governance controls around analytical data to meet the demands of today's modern enterprise. So in this demo, we'll highlight some specific examples of how we help our customers achieve these data modernization initiatives with Google BigQuery as their data platform. And if you have any questions, please enter them in the questions section of the webinar. If we don't have a chance to get to them on this demo, we'll follow up with you individually. So with that, let me hand it over to Dave Mariani.
Great, thanks, Court. I'm going to take you through a couple slides today just to show you what the architecture is, and then we're going to spend the rest of the time diving deep into the product. We're going to go fast, and so I'll apologize ahead of time for going so fast, but please contact us if you want to go for a deep dive and explore more how AtScale works and can work for you. So as Court mentioned, a virtual data warehouse is going to really help you to basically simplify your analytics infrastructure. And I'm going to show you how we can do that today, and as well as modernize and actually future-proof your stack. So as new tools, new ways of consuming data come into your organization, you're going to be ready for them. Since we connect live to the data, in the case of Google BigQuery, that's where the data stays. It stays in the Google Cloud, does not roam around on people's laptops or be fed directly into different BI tools. So giving that live connection allows you to secure and govern that data in one spot. We're going to show you how we can help you to port those analytical workloads and not rewrite them. And that's how we're going to get you to the cloud much faster than you could do without AtScale. And then finally, this is a way of turbocharging your analytics infrastructure for both BI and machine learning, and I'll show you that. We have a lot of different customers that are using AtScale today, and these are just a few of them. The common thread here for these customers across these different verticals, they're dealing with a lot of data. It's moving fast. They need to modernize their infrastructures either by moving from a warehouse to a lake or moving from on-prem to the cloud or all of the above. And we've helped these customers make those migrations with minimal disruption to their business users. At Yahoo, which is where I came from and where the idea for AtScale came from, you can see that this was my infrastructure at Yahoo. Data warehouses like Oracle, we invented Hadoop, that was our data lake. Lots of different consumers, all requiring different formats and feeds for the data. This was a real nightmare for me and my team because each one of these platforms need to be fed separately, and there was no way to make the data lake work directly for these tools. So I had to take data right out of Hadoop and put it right back into the legacy relational data sources to make it work. That made it very difficult for me to manage, to be agile and deliver new data to the business, to secure it, forget about it, very, very difficult. What we created at AtScale was really a single universal semantic layer, the AtScale virtual data warehouse. That means all your data sources are going to be treated as first-class citizens, and we're going to be using and leveraging those platforms without having to move data out of them. So very important, that AtScale does not move data. We do not ingest data. We are the go-between between your tools, regardless of what tool you're using or what custom application you're using. You're always going to get the same data. You're always going to get the same performance, which is going to be fast, and you're always going to get the same security and governance rules applied, all at runtime. The AtScale platform, which you'll see today, you're going to see our visual modeler we call Design Center. That's how we actually paint our virtual cubes, and that's how we create and manage our metadata that our users interact with. It has a full multi-dimensional OLAP engine included. That's very important because that's going to allow you to be able to answer all the questions of the business that you need, including this year versus last year, time series analysis, multi-level metrics like actuals versus forecast, as well as semi-additive metrics like distinct counts and the like. The adaptive cache is what makes it all work. So we plug into your data sources down here, and we actually make them work for business intelligence. And we do that through our adaptive cache. So we create aggregates automatically on these data platforms, including Google BigQuery. That does a few things. It makes BigQuery even faster and very well suited for analytics. And it also saves you a ton of money. And I'm going to show you a real life example of how we do that. So how do we help with migrating to Google BigQuery? Well, if your organization looked like mine, you probably looked a lot like this. You have different data platforms powering different BI tools, all with their own models, all with their own dedicated schemas or feeds to actually feed them. This is what makes migrating to the cloud so difficult, because you have to unwind all these different bespoke and hard-coded ties back into your original data warehouses. With AtScale and Google BigQuery, you can take those same sources that you previously loaded into your warehouses and load them as is into BigQuery. And then AtScale will create that single semantic layer that will power all your BI tools without you having to rewrite those tools and applications. We actually have wizards that will take those models from these BI tools, turn them into an AtScale virtual model, and allow you to go and source that data with Google BigQuery live without data movement or without any ETL. Okay, let's get to the demo. This is what we're going to do today. It's going to be a two-stepper. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some Google BigQuery data that I'll show you in a second in the cloud, and I'm going to take that raw data and turn it into a virtual cube. I'm not going to move the data. I'm not going to ETL the data. I'm simply going to define dimensions and measures and hierarchies right on my canvas without moving anything. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hat off as a data owner after I publish my virtual cube, and I'm going to show you what it looks like to query in a live query in Excel and in Tableau. So let's go. No more slides. Okay. So the first thing you see here is this is Design Center. Design Center is a web-based UI. This is how we're going to be defining our virtual cubes. You can see that I have my connection to my Google BigQuery warehouse. Of course, I can connect multiple warehouses in AtScale. In this case, we're going to be using the Google BigQuery warehouse. If I look at my data, I'm working within a demo data set today. On my AtScale data warehouse on the Google platform. You can see I have some raw data here loaded in some Google tables. So let's go and let's create a virtual cube. So let's go to our landing page here. What you'll notice is I can create virtual cubes either from scratch, or I can actually import them as XML documents, or by using these wizards to actually translate all that business logic that's embedded in either your cube or BI tools, translate those directly into an AtScale virtual cube. So you can see how the process works. I'm actually going to create a cube manually today by clicking on the new cube and calling it, let's call it demo. So as I create that demo cube, now I'm going to enter into what we call our canvas. So what do we have here? It's a blank canvas. Left-hand side is where our data goes. Right-hand side is our preview for what the business user is going to see with their BI tool. So I'm going to start with my AtScale data warehouse. You see that there. You see there's my demo schema that you saw in Google BigQuery. I didn't have to do anything to get this. We're reading the Google BigQuery catalog directly, which means as new data appears, I can go ahead and use this data source panel and actually put it onto my canvas. So here's my sales log that I'm going to be using today. If I look at this data or look at the look at the data through what we call our data set composer. You can see here's my data, and I can work with this data directly on this canvas. So let's say, for example, if I wanted to convert this date into a date time, I can go ahead and do that. And you can see that my data is being updated live before me. So I converted that date into a time. Or I can create new columns of data, new calculations. I'll create a sales tax, for example, by taking my sales amount times 8.5%. That query now is just, if I save that, becomes a new column in my virtual view here. And I can come back to my, my designer. You can see that I now have my sales tax column calculated there, and I can go ahead and drag that into my virtual cube that I'm creating. So now if I look at preview, I have one measure called sales tax. So let's go and add some more measures like sales amount and order quantity. I can do complex calculations, like I got my, my customer key here. I can actually turn that customer key into a distinct count by changing my aggregation handler to say distinct count. So now I can count my distinct customers. Okay, so I have my metrics that I'm gonna use today. Let's start building out some dimensions. I'm gonna go to our library and look at our dimensions here in our library. AtScale is all about reuse and all about using objects and reusing those objects over and over again. I'm gonna pull in my dates dimensions. You can notice it has a couple hierarchies, including the product dimension, and let's even pull on a customer dimension onto my canvas. So how do these work? I simply wire up these dimensions to my raw data. So let's take my order date, connect it up to my date hierarchy, give it a prefix of order, and voila, if I look over here, I've now inherited my order date, my hierarchy that I just landed on. Day, month, quarter, year. Simple as that. Do the same thing with ship date. And I'll have my ship date here. Let's connect up my products. And I have products now being added over here. Let's connect up my, my customer. And now I have my customer also in here. What about nested data? Google BigQuery is really great with nested data. So product info is actually a set of key value pairs. I can actually go ahead and split that out and add color, for example. Color now becomes a virtual dimension. I can go ahead and put that in my dimension pane. And now I have color as a automatic dimension. No need to create any kind of ETL, no need to create dimension tables. I'm actually creating my star schema virtually on the left-hand side as I sort of build out my, my virtual cube. Okay, I'm satisfied with what I got now. Let's go ahead and just make this cube consumable by my BI users. We're gonna do that by publishing it. So I'm gonna publish that virtual cube. And now that virtual cube called demo is now available for people to connect to. So let's go ahead and let's connect to it using first Tableau. So now what I'm gonna do, now that I define that virtual cube, remember I didn't do anything other than defining the model. Now I'm logging in to the AtScale, service with Tableau. This is now a live connection to the AtScale virtual cube. So there it is. There's all the dimensions that I just created. You can see my product dimension has a hierarchy. Let's go and start to run some live queries now. So now what I'm running, that was a live query that ran directly against Google BigQuery. So let's look at my orders, and let's look at my orders by product. You can see that, very good. Google BigQuery is nice and fast. Let's look at my orders by color. Now color, remember, was a nested field. So, so this is something that we were actually able to render without having to break it out. So that was a key value pair that I'm now visualizing just like as a flat dimension. Very nice. So let's go and see how this looks in a different tool. Let's go and see how it looks in Excel, for example. So I'm gonna go ahead and load up my Excel. and I'm going to connect live with Excel. So let's go and connect using the built-in analysis services connector. What this means for your users, if you have Excel, is that you're now able to connect Excel live to your Google Cloud. That's pretty impressive because now, oops, let me get that connection string here. Paste that in. Oops. Try that one more time. There we go. There's my demo virtual cube that I just created here. Now, as I create a live pivot table here, I can go ahead and you'll see the same metadata that you see in Tableau is now going to appear right here live in Excel. Same metadata, same answer, same lightning fast performance, and obviously same security and governance rules all apply. Okay, sounds good, right? Let's go and let's actually make a change here, and let me show you just how easy it is to load new data into Google BigQuery and how we can use it in AtScale. So I'm going to go ahead and load up some JSON data. Google BigQuery is great at actually creating and integrating with new data types like JSON, XML, and nested data sets. So I'm going to go ahead and create a table, and I'm actually going to upload it. I'm going to upload it, and I'm going to upload this customer segment JSON file. And I'm actually going to use Google BigQuery's auto detect feature. So it'll actually detect that schema automatically. And I'm going to call it my customer segment. So this is a segmentation that one of my data scientists created for me. And so I'm actually going to integrate that with my virtual cube. So you can see that the table has been created. And here's my data, and there's my preview. You can see I have segments defined, and there's my customer key. So now let's go back to AtScale and show you how that could be integrated in. So let's go and enter our Let's bring up our demo here. And what you'll see here is as my customer key, is my customer segment. Here it is. I just bring it, actually I'm not going to bring it onto the canvas. I'm going to turn that into a dimension by doing like so. So I'm going to create my customer segment. I'm going to select the key, which is going to be my customer key. I'm going to select my value. I'll do that and say save. And now I have a dimension on my canvas called customer segment. So there it is. Now I just hook it up to my raw data just by connecting it up, just like I did the others. If I now want to do and edit this dimension, what I do, what I can do is I can say, for example, if I look at the raw data here really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and create a new dimension off a segment, or a new column. I'll save that. I'll make that segment part of my, as an attribute in my hierarchy here. And I'll call it segment. And now I've created a new segment dimension in my model, which if I come back to the preview, there's my segment. I integrated a whole new file just uploading that into BigQuery. Okay, let's also add another attribute in my product info. Let's add, in addition to color, let's also add size. So I'll add size as a dimension as well. So now I have two new virtual dimensions I just added. All I need to do is republish that, and that will automatically take effect. So let's go back to Tableau now, and what you'll see here is I have my color. If I hit refresh very quickly here, what you're going to see is you're going to see my two new dimensions, segment and size, show up. So let's go ahead and add size in on this color query, and let's see what I get in terms of product distributions by color and by size. We'll get rid of all those nulls, and then voila, there I have it, my colors and size. What about that segment that I just created? Well, let's do order quantity, and let's put in my segment. And you'll see I instantly now have my users or my customers segmented by blue collar and white collar workers in terms of occupation. And I integrated that instantly with my data. Okay, you saw how fast it is to integrate new data sources in AtScale and make them available to your BI users which is really going to ease your move to the cloud. What about cost savings? Let's go and let's take a look at something here. I'm going to go back to AtScale and show you our query log and show you a neat trick in Google BigQuery about estimating cost of queries. So here's that color and size query. It took 7 seconds originally. And if you look at our inbound, you can see that we intercepted this query from Tableau. But we actually rewrote the query to run it against BigQuery. And this is the query that we ran. Imagine your users having to write queries like this in BigQuery. We do that for you. It's obviously very complicated to do a query like this, but using AtScale's machine-generated SQL, we're going to do that for you, and we're going to do it efficiently as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this into my my query. And what you're going to see over here on the right is that you see that this query is going to process 1.6 megabytes when run. Now, what that means is that 1.6 megabytes is what you're gonna pay on a per query basis, because Google BigQuery, one of their pricing models is their base pricing model is based on the amount of data you're scanning. So let's keep that in mind. That's 1.6 megs. Let's go and I have a little translator over here. You can see here Google Cloud has a very nifty cost analyzer. So you can do cost estimates here. So be sure to use that. I'm going to go ahead and put in my 1.6 megabytes here. I'm going to translate that to kilobytes because you're going to see why in a second. Okay, let's go back to Tableau and let's refresh this query one more time. Okay, it actually did refresh. We saw how fast it was because AtScale actually created in its adaptive cache an aggregate table. So let's go back and see what AtScale did now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh. Now you see that this new query, same color and size, this time it took less than a second, 834 milliseconds. So let's go and let's look at that query. This is the adaptive cache at work. And so here's the new query that it used, and you can see that we're using an aggregate instead of hitting the raw data. Now let's go back to BigQuery. Let's replace that 1.6 megabyte query with our new AtScale query that's been optimized using our adaptive cache, and look what happens. It's 1.2 kilobytes. So let's go and let's do the calculation to see how much AtScale would have saved you on this particular query. So that's 1,600 kilobytes for the original query, which was unoptimized, and the optimized query was 1.2 kilobytes. That's a 1,300 times cost savings just for that one query. So not only did AtScale make that query fast, from 7 seconds to under 1 second, it also saved you a ton of money. So that's a whirlwind tour of AtScale and just how much we can improve and save you money, save you time, give you agility so you can introduce new data sources and get you moved to this great platform BigQuery as soon as possible.
Thanks so much for the demo, Dave. We got a couple of questions here from the people attending. One question is one that we tend to get a lot, but it's how does AtScale scale with the growing amount of data that an enterprise may have?
Yeah, BigQuery is great for scale, and AtScale is obviously plays along with BigQuery because we're not moving data, you're not scaling AtScale. So we scale with BigQuery, but we make BigQuery even better because what we do is that by using our adaptive cache, we make queries even faster and makes it really, really suitable for BI speeds. You can see with our adaptive cache, you can see how much we condense the data. which means that we're going to scale. So that aggregate that you saw that we were just looking at that saved you 1,300 times the price. If I look at that actual aggregate itself, you can see it's only 64 rows. So regardless of how big your data is, if it's billions, we have customers with trillions of rows, we're going to be able to optimize those structures so you're not constantly rolling and rereading atomic data. You're using AtScale's aggregates and adaptive cache in its place.
Perfect. Another question that we got is just around the migration process in general. So AtScale, we showed AtScale being used in a migration process, but is AtScale primarily used for migration specifically, or are people using AtScale if they've already made a migration or potentially even prior to it?
Yeah, well, you saw that by centralizing all the semantic work, is that we've been able to help with migration because we're not having to rewrite all these different applications and all these different data feeds. So besides migrating to the cloud, what that gives you afterwards, of course, is the agility to introduce new data sources. As you load them into BigQuery, you can make those instantly available for all your users, just like you saw today with that customer segment example. So not only does it give you the ability to move to the cloud much easier with less disruption today, it future-proofs you so that as you add new ways of consuming with new tools, or you integrate new data sources, we're going to make those easy to integrate and do it all through virtualization.
Great, thank you. And one more question, Dave, before we wrap up the half hour here. Can AtScale replace a data virtualization layer like Denodo, or will the data always have to be in one place before AtScale can consume it?
AtScale can access these data sources anywhere they are, whether they're on the cloud, whether they're on-prem, or whether they're in between. So AtScale has its own virtualization layer that will allow you to access those sources in place. With our adaptive cache, it makes those data platforms, which may not be suitable for business intelligence, it makes them work for business intelligence. So we can absolutely work with other tools, and we can sit on top and talk to a Denodo if need be, but we can also be a replacement for Denodo as well.
You, and I want to thank everybody who joined the webinar today for taking the time to learn more about AtScale and the work we do with BigQuery. If you have additional questions, you can feel free to reach out to us directly through the AtScale website, or if you have a contact here or an AE, happy to address those questions specifically. We'll also be at Google Next in San Francisco, April 9th through the 11th. So if you're going to be there, we'd love to connect with you in person. And then finally, our next demo, we're going to be highlighting how AtScale works with snowflakes. So if you're interested in learning more about that, we'd love to see you then. Thank you all, and looking forward to talking to you guys next time.